good, everybody? Interviews, downtown Warren. We are here live for the Between the Lines podcast with Coach Stella. I am your host. Yes, sir.
How you feeling?
I'm good,
Coach.
Good, Coach.
What's up, baby?
Good, Coach. I am your host, Dante Centofanti. We're going to break down everything that happened in the week one portion of the high school football regular season, Coach. You know, what's good? Lots happened.
Man.
Lots has happened.
Hey, we got week one in the books, Dante.
Yep.
It was fun. I had fun being out with y'all boys, covering games, running around the sideline. Me and Dante got in a little better shape. But it was fun, Dante. Of course, I miss coaching, so anytime you could be in the arena, on the sideline, you know what I mean, capturing the kids, have fun. I loved it, man. I loved it. And being out there with y'all just make it that much better, baby. So I can't wait. I can't wait till this Friday to get back out there, baby.
I know. But let's get down to what happened last week in our Buena Vista Cafe game of the week. Our first one, our second one technically, but right. We were at Canton McKinley versus Warren G. Harding, Mollenkopf Stadium. Dub was in full effect, but they were not in full effect in the second half because McKinley, to quote Nick Saban, ran through them like through a tin horn, bro. And Harding did not get a point in the second half, right? They did not get a single point in the second half. Things were off to a good start, though. I mean, they started off shaky. Drew, the official new quarterback for the Raiders, took him a while to get acquainted, but things got well. I mean, there was a great kickoff return after it was a very hectic end of the first half. I was telling you that at halftime. I mean, McKinley, but McKinley, Coach Hall, he had them, he must have said something that really got to them at halftime because they just had complete domination in the second half. A lot of their D1 commits, showed out.
Yep.
Their running game was on point. I mean, just give us a breakdown.
So pretty much what I seen. First of all, let's shout out to Canton McKinley, Coach Antonio Hall. Coach, you got a really good team on your hands. More importantly, you got some really good kids on your hands, getting to talk to them before and after the game. So shout out to Canton McKinley. Of course, everybody know I went to Warren G. Harding, but got to give props where props due, man. Coach Hall, you got a good team on your hands, and they came down here and handled business. From Harding side of it, the first half was kind of like, that week one. You could tell Harding they were all the way ready to play the first quarter, but the second quarter they did a good job of fighting back, making some plays, and getting back into the game. Overall, I thought the defense played pretty good for the most part. Of course, everybody seen that they gave up a lot of deep balls down the middle, so I'm sure when the coaches see that on film, they want to fix that up. But for most of the game, the defense did a pretty good job of at least. Like when you're playing against Canton McKinley, they got ballers, they got playmakers. So you're not going to stop them all night. So you want to get 2-3 stops a half and get the ball back to your offense. That was kind of Harding's problem for the most part. Let's start out on offense with the pre-snap penalties. We talked about it on the sideline, Dante. At one point, I remember you asking me, like, Coach, how many is that? Of course, I don't know how many it was at the time, but it felt like 10. But it was probably 5 or 6. But at the time, it felt like 10. So offensively, they got to get them pre-snap penalties together. Secondly, you got a first-year quarterback. So you got to ease them to the game. The most important down when you got a first-year quarterback is first down. If we can get 4, 5, 6 yards and get ahead of the chains, now it's 2nd and 5. It's 2nd and 4. I don't care who calling plays. It's a lot easier to call them plays, and now you can ease Drew into the game. Overall, of course, I think we all know the game switched a little bit when they came out the half. Canton McKinley had Nino Hill. We don't know what happened for him not to play in the first half, but we know he a big-time tailback. We see why he just got the offer to Wisconsin. But he's good. He's legit. And then that was kind of just like the icing on the cake. Canton McKinley had they had their three-headed monster. They had their quarterback, they had their big play receiver outside, and they had that animal dotting the I. So it's week one. You never want to go out being too high, too low. It's always somewhere right in the middle. But it's like any team in week one, whether you win or lose, it's a lot to go back and clean up. But overall, I think Warren G. Harding got to clean up their pre-snap penalties, and they got to find a way to get Drew more comfortable, or whoever's at quarterback. It really don't matter. I could have been playing quarterback. Tom Brady could have been playing quarterback that night. They didn't do a good job putting him in position. So who's ever at quarterback for them moving forward, they got to do a better job easing them into the game, giving them easy throws, and they can't abandon the run game. I know Antonio Smith got hurt, but 22 pretty good back too. So at some point, you got to also, when you got a first-year quarterback, you got to have balance. you can't expect him to go out there and call a lot of pass plays and him to make plays all night. So those are some of my thoughts, Dante. It's a lot of thoughts, but those were some of my thoughts thinking back on the game.
Some of my thoughts on the game. I mean, you told me on the sideline, you said, I'm a little iffy on if Harding came to play today. And in the first half, I mean, you were wrong. I mean, they clearly did come to play. Game was tied at halftime. They had a lot of momentum going into the second half. But, and you could say, oh, well, Nino Hill checked into the game. He has an offer from Wisconsin, and he proved why he does have an offer from, a Power 5 team like that. But, you just can't let somebody dominate that much, especially, a conference rival on your home field in week 1. You can't just let them dominate like that. And I think if, it goes back to what I told you with the penalties in the first half. And they were able to correct that. But, that doesn't really mean much if you correct it in the second half when, you're letting them run all over the field and you're not doing anything offensively. I think Harding really needs to go into this week against Buchtel with the mindset that they need to just have, they need to have everything on point. You're going on the road, hostile environment. And
we can't underestimate Akron Buchtel.
No, you cannot. Absolutely.
I talk to people in Warren and people around the program. We can't just think we're about to get on the bus and go to Akron and whoop on Akron Buchtel.
No, you cannot.
Especially when you're playing on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Yep.
So that's an unconventional day and time. You got to hope your kids is locked in and ready to go. And it's Akron Buchtel. We know they got talent and we know they got athletes. So, and they're going to be geeked up. I'll guarantee you they got this game circled. They're going to get more fan support this week than they normally get. Their kids going to be jacked up. Their coach is going to be on their A1 game plan. So, of course, we know Harding can go do it. But I hope they focus when they get on that bus to go to Akron.
The thing, though, with McKinley is I'm very impressed by them. I mean, Nino Hill, he kicked the ballistics in the second half, man. He
went to work.
He just, it was like complete domination. And he's going to get a lot more offers. I'm sure he does have a lot more offers than Wisconsin. But, like, McKinley's going to play Avon this week. That's going to be a very highly anticipated game in Northeast Ohio. And I'm really going to be interested in seeing how they do against Avon. That game,
that's gonna be a big
that game is just that to me, that's going to really set the tone for how McKinley does, for the rest of the regular season. But, again, before we move on, I think McKinley, I told you, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people thought. And at first, I was right. But in the second half, when you're a team like Harding and you want to win with the schedule that you have, you got to be able to, come to play in the second half. And, they did not. They did not.
Halftime adjustments, Dante. When I gave you and the team some of them cheat sheets of like players to look out for, a couple questions I'm looking at the bottom, I put turnovers, tackling, red zone officialing, and halftime adjustments. That's one thing that a lot of fans don't understand how important it is to have a coaching staff that can take you in the locker room, understand what's hurting you, and make adjustments so they can put the team in best positions moving forward. You could tell Canton Mckinley, shout out to Coach Hall. Coach Hall did a great job. He wasn't halftime. He got his kids refocused. He knew he had Nino Hill coming back in, so he knew he was fine. But you could tell the focus was back there as far as how they were attacking Harding in the second half. But the person I was really impressed with Canton Mckinley was the quarterback, Keaton Rhodey. And it wasn't really the plays he was making. He played great that night. That's why he was our player of the game that night. It was his attitude after the game. And he wasn't faking. Before the cameras came around, before we got ready to interview him, I could look at his face. He wasn't satisfied. And he said, Coach, we could have put up a lot more points. We left some plays out there. Anytime you got a good staff, a talented team, and you got a leader at quarterback like that who never satisfied, that's a recipe for success. So, again, shout out to Keaton Rhodey, baby. You did your thing. Don't change. Shout out to the Canton Mckinley Bulldogs. Them boys is loaded. Nino Hill, Dante McClellan, Dior Gardner, Keith Quincy, like them boys loaded. So, Coach Hall, you got one of them things on your hand. Good luck to you this year, Coach Hall.
Yeah,
shout out to Canton McKinley.
Yeah, no doubt. Also, our best wishes go to Marlowe. He suffered an injury in the first quarter.
Yep.
We're praying for you, bro. We hope you have a speedy recovery and you're back on the field.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Before we move on. All right, we're going to move on to our other Buena Vista Cafe, our Thursday edition game of the week, Ursuline versus Steubenville. Now,
that was a big time game.
Absolutely.
That's a great first game.
And, Taylor, their transfer Taylor from Warren JFK. I mean, in his Ursuline debut, he did nothing but, show out.
Yep.
He's going to be a great addition to that Ursuline offense. And, Christian Lynch, DC Farrell, Jack Erickson. They came to play. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns, 235 yards. I mean, it just Ursuline. If there was ever a question about them, are they going to still be consistent? They answered it. It just, again, I told you when we talked about teams that we could see winning state this year out of all the area teams, I said it was Ursuline. And they didn't skip a beat, and they beat a very good Steubenville team with a lot of like D1 commits, and they did it pretty handily. So that was a big statement.
And then the thing also that made the Ursuline win is that more impressive is the style of game that Steubenville plays. You don't play against offenses nowadays that's double tight, with a wing, stack eye, 12 personnel, 22 personnel, 21 personnel. So that's hard to get a good scout team read, because your scout team ain't going to be able to give you that type of look to have your varsity team ready. So it's easy to get ready for teams that's 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide. That's what everybody do nowadays. But when you got to go and play one of them old school teams and they double tight, 2-3 backs, they trying to run that ball down your throat, that's hard to get adjusted for. So shout out to Coach McGlynn. The DC at Ursuline did a great job. Did a good job throughout the game of staying calm, talking to the kids, tweaking stuff here and there, and just talking to the kids in communication so when they go back on the field, they're ready to perform. A lot of people text me because they knew we was at the Ursuline game this week, and they, what's your biggest takeaway? What's your biggest takeaway? My biggest takeaway is they're scary because they scored 33 points, and DC Farrell wasn't a factor in the game. That's pretty scary. Think about that. They scored 33 points. Jack Erickson threw for 235 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then, if my memory correct me right, I think DC had 2 catches for 50 yards. That's a good game for most high school players, and that's still a good game for him. But we know how explosive he is and how many plays he can make.
Yep.
So the fact that they put up that many points, and Christian Lynch was quiet. He still had 100 yards and then a touchdown, but it wasn't like one of his breakout games. But you look at the other 2 kids, this is why they're special. They got to transfer in Devontae Taylor, sophomore. He got a chance to be really, really good. He got a chance to be really, really good. If he take that coach and he get in that Ursuline, keep his head down, keep grinding, in 2 years, he'll be signing the Division I scholarship for sure.
Yeah, no question. I mean, he was taking the top off of defenses, a pretty solid Steubenville
He's
secondary.
dunking on them boys all night.
Absolutely. He's going to play basketball.
Yep.
Right?
And we can't leave out Tyron Davis, number 8. Big time game.
Absolutely.
He caught a crossing route. I want to say took it 71 yards to the house. So again, I guarantee you, Steubenville, when they circle players for the game, they circle Jack Erickson, they circle Christian Lynch, they circle DC Farrell. They did not circle Devontae Taylor or Tyron Davis at all, and look what they did. So now, if you playing Ursuline next week, what do you do? Who do you game plan for? So that's the scary part about it. And they got the type of coaches with Coach DeSantis and Coach Reardon that's leading that offense. Man, that's scary. That's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to play basketball for Keith Canton, right?
Jake Erickson?
Yeah.
I hope not.
No, I meant Taylor.
Oh, Devontae? I hope not. I'm still a Highland basketball coach, so I hope they don't play. No, honestly, they probably will. They athletes. They good kids. Coach Gunther got a great basketball program, so I can see them playing. But like you said, I can see Ursuline making a late run. So I can see them guys maybe playing and helping out more in the basketball season in the second half. Because I expect Ursuline to have a long,
no question.
long
Ursuline, they're going to be playing at the Hall. They're going to be going to Canton.
I
think all roads. I know it's week 1, but all signs are pointing to them to get back to state because they have unfinished business there going back to 2021. But hey, I mean Ursuline, their schedule. We were talking about like their schedule in the SVC, and we're gonna get into Cheney like later. But judging by how Cheney looked in week 1, we're gonna get to that later, and the way Ursuline looked in week 1. I don't think the Irish. I don't think the Irish have as tough as a path as I thought they were. But again, it's only week 1, so you got to keep that into account. But we get to our next subject is the Austintown Fitch Falcons. Again, they, out of all the teams making statements in week 1, McKinley made a great statement. I think they made the biggest statement out of all the teams that we covered. But Fitch, they went into a hostile, Euclid environment, one of my favorite stadiums in Northeast Ohio, Euclid Community Stadium, and they put up a 40-piece. And they did, and they held their opponent to under 10 points. And that does a lot for your confidence, going into week 1. Because again, Fitch, they had a lot of off-season, noise. And I feel like they were sick of hearing it. And they were sick of, I'm sure they got love, for Brian Robinson, I'm sure they got love for him. But, at the end of the day, we're a great team. We're the most talented team,
Right.
one of the most talented teams in Northeast Ohio. We have so many Division I commits, and they proved that on the road in a big stage. I think that was one of the Cleveland Browns games of the week for week 1, and they came out and they just had total domination from start to finish. Coach,
absolutely. I think it was 4 games the Cleveland Browns had, and there was one of them.
Yeah,
it kind of went under the radar because they played up in Cleveland, so we didn't get a lot of people, newspaper and news media to go up there and cover the game. But shout out to Coach TJ Parker. Shout out to his seniors. Shout out to his leaders. They couldn't wait to get out there and play.
Yeah.
They couldn't wait to get out there.
Let's just cut out all the noise.
Yeah, let's cut out the noise. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go.
And let's get the football. Plus, you add on top of that they kind of went out earlier in the playoffs last year than they planned on. I'm sure than they planned on. They had injuries down the stretch that kind of derailed their season. But shout out to the coaching staff and shout out to the senior leadership, because Euclid, they're going to have boys. You never know how good the team they're going to be, but they're going to have athletes and they're going to have talent. So when you go on the road, whether it was a neutral site at Euclid, and you put up 40 on offense and you only give up 6 on defense, that's a great first week. That's a great first week, and that's something to move forward on and keep getting better and keep adding on. But it's just like all these other teams, like we saying Ursuline going to be good. We can say that because we're from the outside looking in. When those guys are in the building, them coaches, they just want to stack bricks every day. You just want to get better every day. Get better every day, have a great week of practice. Okay, let's go back out here on Friday and let's get better. Let's come in and watch film Saturday, see what we can get better at. Take care of your body on Saturday and Sunday and keep going about it. So that's what the good program's doing. That's why Fitch are. That's why they're at the point they are right now. Moving forward, I mean, it's Fitch. Nothing surprised me. They talented. We talked about it in our preview. We think they're the most talented team in the area. I mean, they loaded at all 3 levels. So it's just a matter of getting better every day, taking your coaching, and not being satisfied and staying humble. If they do that,
sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. And Fitch can go as far as they want to go. So shout out to Fitch, man. The Fitch is one of my – we talked about it. They're the most talented team in the area to us. So, it didn't surprise me at all, but it still was impressive in the fashion that they did it, going away from Austintown Fitch, and you beat a team 40-6 like Euclid with athletes. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for them. But I just think, like, in the wake of everything that happened in the offseason, I think it was really good for them to just get back on the field and show why they're so talented. So I think, again, we talk about how it's only week 1, but I think if week 1 matters to any team that we're talking about, it's Fitch. Absolutely. They just wanted to get out, get going, and they dropped 40-piece on a team in Euclid, in a hostile environment in Cleveland, one of the Cleveland Browns games of the week, and I think they played very, very well. But we move on to we keep it in Mahoney County, South Range. You want to talk about domination, like we just talked about Fitch. They just, this is even more of a hostile environment, that South Range had to go into. Springfield, a team that's been very, very successful over the years, their biggest rival. Week 1, Springfield's unveiling their new turf.
New quarterback.
WKBN had that as their game of the week. You're on TV. You have all this media coverage, and first-year head coach, defending state champions, regular season winning streak on the line. All these things that you have under pressure, and the Raiders responded. And we haven't decided it yet, but we're thinking about their upcoming game against Green being our Buena Vista Cafe game of the week. Stay tuned for that. But Coach Rack, I mean, he had them so ready to play. And if you saw the highlights of the game on, various news stations, you could tell like this team was ready to go.
Absolutely. And again, shout out to the coach. Coach, you did a great job having them boys ready. And also starting a new quarterback, first-year quarterback after losing that big time player they had last year at quarterback. But again, I talked about it in the high school football preview. They have done a great job to build their program to where they're one of the better programs in Trimble-Mahoney County for sure. And they're starting to move into the category where they're one of the better programs in Northeast Ohio. Because when you win the state championship, right, everybody's telling you what in the offseason, how great you are. Everybody's telling you how great you are. And then as you get closer to the season, then it's the doubters. Oh, y'all lost a quarterback. Y'all don't got a quarterback. They came out focused, jumped on Springfield from the jump, and they handled their business. That's a sign of a good program. That's a sign of good coaching. And that's a sign of they're not going nowhere. They're not going nowhere. They was ready to play. And also, I'm sure in the back of their mind, the kids on the team this year, They want to show the community, they want to show their coaches, and they want to prove to themselves, more importantly, they can do it without all them playmakers they lost last year. Like, they had a lot of playmakers last year, but they want to come out and prove that they can still do it. We got a new head coach, defensive-minded background, so we know our defense intact. They bring in a new quarterback, Tristan Toy. Shout out to Tristan. You had a great game. Tristan showed that he can make plays. It's going to look a little different than the quarterback last year. Tristan a little bit more of a dual threat. Even he could throw it and he could run it. But I also said in the high school preview, Blake Ewert and Aiden Dominguez. I said it. They're going to be one of the better 1-2 punches in the area. Like, it's going to be hard to stop them. They ain't going to throw it around like they did last year. But good luck trying to stop them two in the backfield. And then also, one of them can split out. You can throw them the ball. And then when that happens, you worry about them two. Now Tristan Toy kills you in the running the pass game. So South Range, man, I'm not surprised at all. Like you said, maybe we'll be there for this week for the game of the week. Stay tuned for that. And if we do, we know it's going to be a big game. The first unveiling of the renovated stadium, right? So it's going to be a packed house. Hopefully we could be in the house, and it's going to be a good game. They're playing Green. All eyes on South Range.
I mean, Green was a playoff team a year ago, so it'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. I mean, will the streak continue? Will the streak continue? That's the question every week now. Will the streak continue?
Absolutely.
And I think it will.
All right, we're going to remain in Mahoney County. This is one of our last team breakdowns from week one. Cheney, to keep it 100, just, because that's what we do on this show.
Got to.
If I had to pick a more disappointing week one performance, it would be Cheney. They went to Akron East, and they did not play well. They did not play well. And again, there was a lot of hype for this team. Maybe this year they'll snap the SVC, streak that Ursuline has. But they just did not look good. And some people were there covering it, and you could see like footage. Some footage that I saw. From the footage I saw, they did not come to play. They did not come to play, and they need to nip that in the bud.
Yes, absolutely. And I know Coach Antrim will take care of that.
Right.
I wasn't at the game, so I don't know exactly how they play.
Right.
I wasn't that shocked at the outcome. Like,
we saw a little bit of Akron East when we went to the 7-on-7 at Canton.
Also,
we saw a little bit of them.
Dante against scrimmaging against Ursuline.
Right.
And they didn't do bad. They held their own against Ursuline. Now, it ain't game planning, so I'm not saying they could beat Ursuline and Ursuline would beat them. But in the scrimmage where you just kind of show up and you working on your stuff, they look good and they got boys, man. So I wasn't surprised that they lost, you know what I mean? Because Akron East is a good team. But, I kind of seen some plays. They left some plays out there, you know what I mean? Penalties. If I remember right, they recovered the onside kick, but they got a flag because they were offsides, 2-point conversion, stuff like that. But it might be good for Cheney also. Because we all know it's them Cheney kids, man, they prideful. They're not going to like the feeling of that coming out week one and losing, and they get a bye week this week. So it might be a blessing in disguise, Dante, because now guess what? The coaches got all their attention. You lose week one, the coaches got your attention. So now we can get better over this week. Now we can really have 2 weeks to get better before we play Boardman in week 3. Let's take this week, get better. Then also next week before the game, let's get better. I'll say this. I don't feel good about Boardman. I wouldn't want to be on Boardman's team waiting on them boys in week 3 after they got a bye week, listening to your coaches get on you, watching the film, you getting criticized. That's the hardest thing as a player is watching yourself on film when you lose and you don't play your best. So I'm not surprised they lost because Akron East, again, is good. It was a little shocking because we know how talented Cheney is, but they got the talent, man. They got one of the best athletes in the area, Matt Jones. They got a good coaching staff. And it's week 1. Like I said, even with those teams like McKinley and Ursuline and Fitch and South Range that looked great in week 1, that don't mean you're going to look great in week 2. So even if you lose in week 1, that don't mean you're going to lose in week 2. So it's all about a coaching staff that can keep kids humble, keep them focused daily, having kids that want to look forward to constructive criticism. Don't run away from it, run towards it. That's how we get better. And I think they'll be all right. But it might be good for them, honestly, Dante. It might be a blessing in disguise.
No question. All right, we're going to get into our commitment tracker. So, Coach, who's on your mind right now?
So this week we want to give shout-out. I want to give love to Davion Pritchard. He's a senior corner at Fitch. He's committed to Pitt. So shout-out to Davion. Congratulations on your commitment. Shout-out to your family, your coaches, your friends, your teammates, anybody who put their hands on you to help you get to this point where you can commit. And on a Division I scholarship, we salute you. But just talking about the player spotlight, Davion about 6 feet, 6'1", long arms. He's mostly a press corner, but he could play off too. The couple things I like about Davion Pritchard is, unless you watch football, these things won't jump out to you. Number one, he a competitor. When you look at him and you meet him outside of his pads, he a cool kid. He seemed like he's soft-spoken. When you put him on the field, he's a competitor. Number two, he got great ball skills. If he in position and that quarterback is not accurate with that ball or he late with that ball, he going to take it. He's a thief. And thirdly, he got elite quickness at the top of the route. So when the receiver breaking and he breaking, a lot of times he break just as quick as the receiver. And then when you take all of that, he got an uncle that played Division I corner at West Virginia, at Akron. So you get those little tips, those little details that all kids don't kind of get. And you wrap it up in one, and you got a big-time player in Davion Pritchard. So he's going to pick, going to play for Coach Narduzzi, keeping it in the area, going to play for another area guy. And, again, I like Davion's game. Every week we just want to give one player a shout-out that committed, let them know, even though we're in them Fitch, we love your game, we support you, and congratulations. So, shout out to Davion, baby. Keep doing your thing. I like your game, baby.
We're going to get into our game.
Yep.
Our player of the week.
Yes, sir.
And we've decided that it's Jack Erickson. It's only fitting. I mean, he filled up the stat line very well. He came to play, led his team very well in week one. This is the second straight year Ursuline's had a tough, Thursday night week one game. And just like last year against Brookfield, they answered the bell. And the catalyst behind that was QB1. So.
QB1. I'm going to start calling him the general. I like his swag. When you go to practice at Ursuline, you could tell he the Don Dada. You can kind of tell he the Pied Piper in a good way. You could tell his teammates want to be around him. You could tell his teammates want to play for him. And he got that moxie. He got that swag.
Right.
But just being honest, Dante, he took his game up a notch from last year. He was a good player last year, but he took his game up a notch. Again, it's week one. I'm sure Coach Reardon, all the coaches like, Danny, calm down. Let's not put him in the Heisman Trophy award race right now. But he took his game up. And again, as a quarterback, if I'm a senior quarterback, outside of Christian Lynch behind me, my number one threat is DC Farrell. For me to go throw for 235 yards, 4 touchdowns, and for DC to really on that night be the third option in the pass game, that says a lot to the quarterback. He did a great job. He made some big plays, shrugging off sacks, continuing the drive. So shout out to Jack, baby. You did your thing, man. 235 yards, 4 TDs, and more importantly, you'll never get our player of the week if you don't win. So more importantly, he came home with the win. He was a leader. I'm sure Coach Reardon and Coach DeSantis felt like he took the game plan for paper, and you make it live on green. Get the band rolling, baby. They had the band playing all night, baby. So shout out to you, Jake. You did your thing, baby. But can you do it next week?
I think
it's a little personal challenge from Coach.
Something about Ursuline that you need to know, Coach Stella. They breathe consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
They breathe consistency.
Absolutely.
It's a great thing on the north side. Shout out to you. Great. Congratulations, Jack, being our first ever
player of the week
on the Between the Lines podcast. All right, Coach. Before we depart tonight, the NEO versus America Showcase.
Yes,
it was originally going to be at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium in Massillon, but they moved it to Tom Benson Stadium, and everything got kicked off in that challenge at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium as Massillon hosted Valdosta.
Yep.
They have the Netflix show, the all-time winningest program in American history, and Massillon's right behind them at number 4, I believe, and the Tigers were able to win at home, and Northeast Ohio swept the entire challenge. Glenville, Hoban, St. Ed's, and Massillon, they all came to play.
Yes,
and
sir.
I don't think I really hope people will understand how critical, because our game is put up against the best in America.
Yep.
You got Florida, you got Texas, you have Georgia, obviously,
California,
Louisiana. All those states have, cats that can play, and we always represent, our brand of the game. And I don't think there's been a bigger, statement, for Northeast Ohio or just Ohio football in general than, all our teams clean sweep.
Let's Northeast Ohio stand up, baby. You seen what we did? They all won. Big up to our community, Northeast Ohio. This is what we do. A lot of people don't know this is what football was originated at, baby.
Justin Jefferson won in the mic 1, 2, 3, and 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Sent them all home. So
4.
Shout out to Massillon. Shout out to Akron Hoban. Shout out to Lakewood St. Ed's. Shout out to Cleveland Glenville. We don't live in y'all communities, but we still a part of the community from afar. We support y'all, and we appreciate y'all. Y'all put Northeast Ohio on y'all back, and they represented for us, Dante. They did their thing.
Absolutely.
So shout out to y'all boys, man. All 4 of them teams are super talented, so none of us are. But we just want to get our respect back from outside of the state. We originated football. This is the home. This is what we do. We don't got hot weather for 12 months, and we don't run track twice a year, and we don't run 7-on-7, and we don't have spring ball. We play football from May till the end of the season, and we still got the best team, some of the best teams, and some of the best players in the United States of America. And that ain't going to never change. So, again, Northeast Ohio, stand up. We should all be proud. And, again, shout out to Massillon, shout out to St. Ed's, shout out to Glenville, shout out to Hoban. We was watching y'all. Thanks for representing us the right way. Keep going. All 4 of y'all teams got a bright future. So, and shout out to the coaches in the communities. But Northeast Ohio, stand up, baby. They did their thing, Dante.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a great thing. And that wraps up our first regular season episode of the Between the Lines podcast.
Yes,
stay locked in with interviews throughout the week. We have a lot of great content coming. We'll announce our game of the week in the coming days. And
Go
of course,
check out that Coach McD interview.
And check out our interview with the Hall of Famer, the McKinley leader, the Harding leader, the father of lots of great coaches in the NFL, 2 great coordinators. We have that interview up and ready on our YouTube channel. Stay locked in with interviews throughout the week as we get set for week 2 of the high school football season.
Warren, Ohio. I love you.
Yes, sir.
I love you. My kids
stay locked in, baby. Stay locked in.
We out.
All right.
Man, that was quick.